That is what venom is. It's, what is it?
It's a juicy thing that comes out of a gland that gets jabbed into you, usually by a fang, and it just screws you up in some way.
Yeah, spot on, pretty much, yeah. So what is antivenom then?
Well, it's the spell that stops the venom. It is something that basically reverses whatever chemical process has been started by the venom, right? Or maybe binds to the venom and makes the venom inactive.
That was a very smart save there, sir. Yeah. So antivenom is essentially the treatment for venoms, right? And I guess it's very easy to be surprised at how antivenoms are made, but if you've got the sort of biological understanding, like the sort of foundational understanding, it makes so much sense. Like it's one of those things where if you've got that foundational level of knowledge and you didn't sort of put two and two together, when you realize it and it clicks, you're like, oh yeah, duh. How else would we do it? It's like the easiest way. So let's get into it. It was first created in 1890s by a protege of Louis Pasteur. Do you know who that is?
I can't remember what he did though.
Pasteurization.
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah. So it was a guy named Albert Camet. He was in Vietnam, and a flood basically shoved a lot of cobras into where he was living.
A flood. Oh right, okay.
Well, the snakes are like, I don't want to drown in a flood.
Right.
So
I thought you meant they got swept in on a wave through the window.
I mean, it's the actual words I've got in front of me are was living in present-day Vietnam when a flood forced monocled cobras into a village near Saigon.
Okay.
So whether it was
That's
forced,
not at all
it's
what I
not
was
clear.
thinking.
It's not clear.
Just a wave came along and loads of snakes were deposited in his house, and it's just getting bitten all over the place. And he's like, I should invent antivenom.
It's like the sequel to Sharknado. No, so
Snake-nado. We need to make Snake-nado now.
So 40 people were bit, and 4 people died from these snake bites.
Okay,
yeah.
I will take back my laughter.
Yeah,
Snake-nado.
Sorry, I am very cruel. It is very fun to watch you spin your wheels and then find out that there was a horrible tragedy.
You love leading me into a little alley, don't you? Just put me down the bottom alley, make me say something insensitive, and then go, so loads of people died.
I didn't make you say a single thing. Moving on, so in Saigon, 40 people were bitten, and he was like, oh wow, that sucks. There's nothing we can do about this yet because it is 1890s. Or 1890, whatever. Anyway, so in 1890, he met Louis Pasteur. Pasteur was impressed by all the stuff that he was working on. And he was the one that sent him off to Saigon to go work there at the Pasteur Institute in Saigon. And so he saw the snakes there and the lethal effect that they could have. And he was like, oh boy, that's something we should be working on. So he started, he published a snake, he published a paper on snake envenoming, and was testing different things as treatments. He published that in 1891. And then, he successfully managed to make an anti-cobra serum, it says here, in 1894, in rabbits. And it was, he basically kind of based his work on vaccines, like early vaccines. So it says here it was based on Henry Sewell, who described repeat inoculations of pigeons with sublethal doses of rattlesnake venom to achieve an increasing resistance to its toxic effects. And, it's the idea of a vaccine is giving you a little bit. I mean, okay, I'm going to simplify vaccines to the point of
ridiculousness. Yes.
Okay.
Especially, you're going to simplify one specific type of vaccine as well.
Yeah. So some vaccines essentially work by introducing a small amount of the poison or whatever it is into the body so that the body can develop a resistance to it. That is not how vaccines actually work. It's much more complicated, but if we're going to simplify it, you put a little bit of the bad thing in and your body's like, I know how to deal with this now.
Yep.
That was the foundational sort of underlying thing for this sort of antivenom, which is really interesting because, it seems almost like that sort of pseudoscience, I give you a little bit of the thing that kills you and it makes you stronger again. So it's like something you get out of some Greek myth. And, imagining that it would work the same for antivenom, for venoms as it does for, the flu, seems mad also because this is a chemical and that is a virus. These are not, viruses are chemicals, but, they're not necessarily exactly the same thing. but they both work by exactly the same bloody process, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's also like you don't necessarily expect that the immune system is what's dealing with like other random chemicals that come into your body. Like if you eat some poison from a plant, you don't assume that it's your immune system that deals with that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess most people wouldn't necessarily assume that.
But they'd be wrong,
They would
I assume.
be. I don't know what people would assume. All I know is what I know, which is not very much. No, I'm joking. Anyway.
But it's more than most of you. And me. I mean, that's why we're here, isn't it? That's why we're listening to you. We don't listen to podcasts by people who know significantly less about the topic than us.
I think that'd be fun. I'd want to listen to a podcast where I know, like, I know more than the person talking. That'd be fun.
But what I mean is, like, you're talking about such a wide range of topics
absolutely.
that most people won't know more than you. And you're sat with research in front of you. Yeah.
I don't know more. I just have research in front of me.
Yes.
So anyway, that's kind of how it was discovered, I guess, or first produced, invented. I don't really like saying invented because it wasn't. I wouldn't say that it was invented. Mm-hmm. We'll get to why that is in a sec. So. So he basically was injecting animals with really small doses of venom and trying to produce some sort of cure or treatment from that. So in 1895 he began production, it says here, at the Pasteur Institute in Lille,
France.
In France.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why I sounded surprised. That was the one thing I knew about that place. There's the one thing I knew about the place that it was definitely in France. I just didn't know how to pronounce it because French is a silly language where none of the letters, half the letters don't count. Anyway, so he began production of basically antivenom in 1895 by basically injecting horses with venom of the naja snake.
I don't understand that jump. So he started injecting animals with small amounts of venom, and they've become somewhat resistant to the venom. How has he then got the anti-venom?
We'll get to
from that.
So
is he feeding people the horses?
Here's the thing. So what would happen is he'd inject the horses with the venom, and the horses would then produce antibodies to that venom. What are antibodies?
I think they're like a little key, almost like a little key that goes into the keyhole on the virus, or in this case, like the venom, and like binds to it and makes it basically inert, like useless.
Broadly, yeah. An antibody,
like a Lego block.
Well, so an antibody is a Y-shaped sort of thing in your body, and it's a protein that's sort of Y-shaped. So if you Google antibodies, it's like you'll see like two lines that look like a capital Y. It's also got, you might also have heard of it as immunoglobulin. Essentially, it's just a protein that they're very, very specific proteins, right? So an antibody for one thing isn't going to be the same as an antibody for another thing. They bind to a foreign thing in the body, the thing that the body doesn't want to be there, unless except in the cases of sort of what are they called, autoimmune disorders, where they'll start binding to things that they're not supposed to. But basically, they're produced to sort of bind to very specific foreign objects or whatever in the body, right? So if there's a chemical in your body and your body's immune system sees that chemical and it's like, doesn't see it, but it sees the chemical and it's like, hey, you shouldn't be here. You should not be here. It's going to start developing antibodies to recognize and bind to that thing, and then it destroys it. Your immune system takes care of it, right?
Yeah. I just find it really interesting, especially in the immune system, it's a little bit more of an active process, but I find really interesting how we talk about the body as like the body then does this, where like the specific example you're giving earlier about like blood coagulating and becoming thick, like that's, the body is not doing that. It's like, I know you know this, but it's just really interesting to me how we talk about bodies as like the body then does this, whereas actually it's like the chemical properties of blood mean that when it is flowing out of the body through a cut, it starts to thicken, and the platelets deposit and things like that. It's not like a central, like the brain has gone, aha, we need to start doing this thing now. The antibodies are a bit more like that. Or does it? Maybe they do. Maybe it releases more of something into the blood when it detects a leak. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the thing is, like, yes, coagulation does happen as a property of blood. I just don't personally know whether there are, the body will secrete coagulation factors to aid in coagulation if something like that is detected. You know what? I don't know, and that is everyone's homework. They can find that out for themselves because I'm not looking up coagulation right now.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
Back to antibodies. The sort of the foreign things, the things that your body doesn't want, would generally be referred to as antigens, right? So you've got antibodies that sort of match up to antigens. Now, when I say it's specific, I really very much do mean that, and that's a very important thing when it comes to antibodies. An antibody for one virus is not going to recognize, venom or something, right? Like an antibody, your body will produce an antibody for a specific antigen. And it will remember. It will. If that thing comes back into your body will be like, oh, I'll just produce this same antibody for this thing again. That's how vaccines work, right? Like your body has produced antibodies for this thing, and then the thing is gone. It's not really producing antibodies anymore, but it's kind of got that memory there. And when the thing comes back, maybe years later, let's say you've got a vaccine, and then you've got you're immune to the thing, and a couple years later, the thing is introduced to your body. Your body's like, oh, I know how to deal with this. Here are the antibodies to deal with this thing because I've already made them. I've already got it on the books, right? Because obviously there's a bit of a time lag to make a specific antibody for a specific antigen before that antigen basically bloody kills you, right? Like that's why we use vaccines, because it's much quicker to produce an antibody that your body's basically already got on file, right?
Yes.
I want to be clear here that I'm speaking broadly and using euphemisms. It is not literally like a sort of filing system that your body has. It's a bit more complex. Don't take what I'm saying too literally.
There's a really good Kurzgesagt book about this, actually.
Like, really?
Kurzgesagt made
I've got it upstairs.
Yeah, me too, in my house. Like a really good book on, in very great detail, how the entire immune system works, but in a way that most people can actually access it, like a Kurzgesagt video.
What they do is I respect so much, because they have to simplify such complex concepts without losing really important details about them. It's a very difficult thing to do, and they do it quite well, I would say.
You do it too.
I don't do it that well. I'm winging it over here, man. Oh, no. But no, so you understand what antibodies are now, right? Antibodies are, they recognize an antigen, a foreign thing in your body, and it basically means that you can deal with it. It's not going to cause you harm, right?